We're here with Amy Bieri-Shields, and she's going to educate us on boxers. She's going to tell us what the history of the boxer is.
So the history of the boxer and what they were bred for, they were bred for hunting large game, boar, bear originally, back in the Renaissance age. They used to use them in large packs, and they used to send them out in packs of 3 to 6 usually at a time, and they were bred to hold and pin that large game down until the hunter can come over and then take care of the business with the animal. So they're actually a working breed, but they were bred for hunting as well, which a lot of people don't realize.
Yeah, that's cool. I heard, maybe we'll get into that in form and function, but their jaws are very specific.
Very strong, yep. And the reason they are brachiocephalic, meaning that they have a short muzzle, and they're supposed to have a wide bite. It's supposed to be square, and it's not supposed to be, the inside of their mouth is not supposed to be any more wide than a pencil width, the width of the mouth, and then very wide and square. And that's so that they could grab on to like a boar or a bear and still be able to breathe through their nose. So they can hold and pin a large game down.
Oh, very cool. What else can you tell us about the form and the function of the boxer?
Of the boxer?
Yeah.
Well, they're a very athletic breed. So they're very well musculared. They can run really fast and leap and jump. So they can clear fences. So, but they're a very athletic breed for sure.
Mm-hmm. Now, what's it like living with a boxer? Something so athletic, something that, if you don't have it on a leash and you're not trained properly, just give us a little bit of that information.
Well, they can have a high prey drive. So meaning that if they see a small animal, a squirrel or a rabbit, they would definitely take off after it if they're not trained. So they do have that kind of prey drive because of their hunting in the past. So you do have to be careful. I would leash walk it. I would make sure you have a fenced yard. And sometimes you have to make sure you have a high fence, like a 6-foot fence or a privacy fence, because they can easily get over fences because they're very athletic and they can jump and leap really high. Okay. So you have to be careful with that. But they're very intelligent, and they want to please their people, even though they have a little stubborn streak in them. But they're very trainable, very intelligent breed.
Now, living with the boxer, is it somebody who is older, younger? Who should be looking at a boxer as a pet?
Yeah, that's a really good question. They're great family dogs. They're wonderful with children. So if you're looking for a nice family dog, a nice companion, as long as you have the room for the dog to exercise. Because the problem is with boxers, if they don't have enough exercise, they can be very mischievous. So they will chew, or they'll get into things. So they need things to do because they are a high energy breed. And so it's important that they have enough room to run, a fenced yard, or someone has the ability to, they make great exercise companions if you are a runner or a jogger. But they do need a lot of exercise. Okay. They're not a breed that, that they're not couch potatoes.
Sure. So not an apartment dog.
Not an apartment dog.
Okay.
Unless someone jogs or exercises and make sure that dog gets enough exercise. But otherwise, no, they really do need, they need a lot of exercise when they're younger for sure.
And as far as a backyard goes, do you recommend a fence? Well, you did say a pretty tall fence. What about collars and invisible fence types of products?
So I did, when I lived in my previous house, I did have an underground fence system, and I had 3 boxers living in my house, and they were very respectful of the fence. So I didn't really have any issues. But you do have to be careful if you have intact boxers. You have to be careful that they aren't, that there's not too much of a desire for them to want to leave the yard. So If they're intact and someone has a dog in season, you have to be careful that they wouldn't want to leave the yard. They see a squirrel or a rabbit. So it's also important that the invisible fence, they're properly trained on it. It's important that the stimulation and the correction is enough that's going to not, that they're not going to want to leave the yard. Because yes, any dog will leave an underground fence if they'll take a hit on that collar if it's enough of something that they want to go after.
The reward is
yes,
exceeds
right.
the penalty.
Yeah. So invisible fences are great, but you have to be careful with any breed really. But boxers are very easily trainable and they're very smart, and they do not have like the desire to want to run like a husky. There's certain breeds that want to just go and they just take off. A boxer is not necessarily like that breed, but they definitely are mischievous and they definitely would have a desire to leave if it was enough of one.
Okay. And now we're going to talk about health issues of the boxer.
So boxers have quite a few health issues, which is unfortunate. But as breeders, we do our best to health test the dogs, and the dogs that we're utilizing for our breeding program, we make sure that we test them for heart issues, and there's a DNA marker for a disease called degenerative myelopathy, which is where they lose the myelin down their spine, and then as they get older, it can be after the age of 6, and they can show signs and symptoms of this disease all the way up until they're 10, 11 years old, but unfortunately they lose the use of their back legs and they can't walk, and then when they get to that point, they're either pulling a cart around or you have to euthanize them. Another issue that boxers have are heart issues. So as a breeder, we make sure that we do proper health testing. We yearly halter monitor the dogs because they have something called cardiomyopathy, which they can actually fall over and die from a heart attack. And then another issue is they have a lot of issues with valves, and so we do a cardiac workup with a cardiologist and they do an echo. And when they do that echo, they check flow rates and they make sure that the size of the heart is normal. And then the other issue they have is cancer. So that you just have to keep track of your pedigrees and know what's behind the dogs, and try very carefully when you breed not to double up on some of the lines that had some cancer issues. But yeah, so those are some of the issues that we have, unfortunately, in the breed.
I think it's pretty standard with a lot of the dogs.
Yes, a lot of breeds.
It's not like, oh, I'm going to find the one breed that doesn't have issues.
That's true.
They all have some.
And even mixed breeds can have
for
problems
sure.
too, because they're they're a derivative of a purebred dog, or they have different purebred dogs in them, so they can come up with some of those issues too.
And now we're going to talk about the expenses that are associated with a boxer dog.
So expenses when it comes to owning a dog in general would be veterinary, food expenses, and training. So veterinary expenses can be costly, especially if your dog starts having some health problems. But if you have a healthy dog and a healthy puppy, then you're looking at vaccinations yearly, heartworm testing yearly, making sure they get on their heartworm medication depending on the area that you live. So, average veterinary expenses, spaying and neutering your pet, those expenses can cost on average, probably a couple $1,000s a year, so you want to make sure you can even buy insurance for your dog. And then going on to food, I recommend a raw diet. That's my #1 choice for feeding a dog and a boxer. And some of the brands that I really like are Stella and Chewy's. They also have a freeze-dried kibble, and so if you don't want to do a straight raw diet, you can do a kibble. Some of the other brands that I have used in the past, From is a very good food for boxers, and ProPlan, I like their sensitive skin and stomach formula because boxers can have some stomach issues. They have a little bit of a sensitive digestive system, so I do like to sometimes go or recommend some of those foods. Now, going back to the raw diet, I love Tucker's. You can also make your own raw diet for your boxer or for your dogs, but you have to add supplements to those, and you have to do a little research and make sure that you are feeding them a proper diet. You can't just go buy like ground beef at the store and just feed them that as a raw diet,
Okay.
So you want to make sure you add certain things And you want to make sure that they get you switch your proteins around. So one week I feed turkey, another week I feed chicken, another week I might feed beef. So it just depends. And it also is really good for dogs that have allergies, a raw diet. So, and then going on to training, if you want to talk a little bit about that.
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah, training any dog is super important, especially a boxer. They can be a little bit stubborn, but it's really important to socialize. So you want to get your dog to different places. You want to socialize them with people and other dogs. You want to make sure that they get out enough that when you take them to places, they're not afraid, shy, they don't become aggressive or fear biters. So it's really important to take your dog out places. And I always recommend taking them to a very well-recognized training facility where you can work with trainers that are knowledgeable. And a lot of trainers that come from facilities that are very knowledgeable know a lot about a lot of different breeds. And then when it comes to a boxer, when you train your boxer, they're very, very smart, but they can be stubborn. So you always want to make sure that they think it's their idea.
That's cute.
It's true.
I believe you. I believe you. So who do you recommend and recommend not get a boxer?
Well, they're a great family dog. So
Okay.
they're wonderful with children as long as they have a good temperament. And you want to make sure you get a dog from a reputable breeder. You know, I don't recommend backyard breeders. A lot of backyard breeders don't do health testing and they don't know years of lineage in those pedigrees. So they are definitely a good family dog, but not probably for someone living in an apartment that's got a single life and enjoying themselves and going out. And, you know, they need exercise and they definitely need like a yard to run in or someone that's very active. So they're very active dogs.
Yeah. So someone elderly, not recommended.
Unless they're familiar with the breed and they have a yard where the dog can run. I think I have had people purchase puppies from me, people that were elderly, just as long as they're familiar with the breed and they know what they're getting into. Because the dog, the breed in itself is a very active breed. And so, but I've had elderly people buy puppies from me and they're great. They bring them to class, they take them for walks, you know, so
Perfect.
as long as that dog is trained, right?
Okay.
Trained not to pull on the leash, they know sit, they know down, they know stay, they come when they're called. So training and socialization are super important, especially with a boxer, but any breed in general really
True.
needs to be trained properly.
Very good point. Very good point. Here are some leashes and collars that Amy recommends.
So for your boxer, or for any dog in general, just depending on the breed, depending on the temperament, right? Even within our own breed that we breed, boxers, there's some of these products that I would or wouldn't use, depending on the dog's temperament, personality. It might be a soft temperament where it's a little shy, it needs its confidence built. So I might not use something like a prong collar, or I might have a dog that is a little more bold, you know, has more prey drive, and, you know, you need to control the manners a little bit. So, so some of these things I recommend, but depending on the dog itself,
Okay.
right? But so first off, if you have a puppy, I love martingale collars. These are great. So you can clip these, and then you can give a little bit of a correction on this collar. When you pull, it tightens up a little bit around the dog's neck and gives a slight correction. So when the dog is not doing something that you know, want it to do, you can give a little tug and release, and this will pull and release on the dog and allows the dog to understand that, you know, that you don't want it pulling or whatever it is. And, you know, I like these too because they're a little bit wider. If you put a little narrower collar on a dog, sometimes they're a little more hesitant because they feel the pressure a little bit more. So these are great for training puppies. You can use them on adult dogs too. So these are martingale collars, all right? And then the prong collar, we have a couple of different kinds. So this kind is just your general standard prong collar, and there's different sizes. This is a medium, all right? So a medium is probably a good size for a boxer, but we also have micro pinch collars, which the prongs are smaller. And so the smaller the prong, the more of a correction that dog is gonna get. So with this size, this is a little bit larger. This is probably a good size for an adult boxer. And so the whole concept behind a pinch collar is that when the dog pulls or you want to correct the dog, these prongs tighten up around the dog's neck, and it kind of takes the dog back to when it was a puppy, because if you ever watch a mom interact with her puppies, she will grab them by the neck sometimes, pin them down. So it's a correction that they've already had. So these are a really nice tool too. But again, you want to use this with a trainer. Don't try to use some of this equipment on your own. If you are not familiar with it, have not used it before, it's always good to get in a trainer's assessment, and they can help you they'll help recommend something for your dog for training or your boxer. All right, and then this is a fuzzy one-bit collar. This is a great brand. So we sell these here. I like these because they're covered, so they look really stylish and beautiful on the outside. They have an assortment of colors and sizes, so this all just depends on the breed. I grabbed this. This is an 18. This is probably about the size of boxer would fit. Anywhere from like an 18 probably on up to, or even a 16 through a 20 or a 22, depending on the size dog, but depending on if it's a male or a female, and a little bit if it's got a thicker neck or if it's a little narrower in the neck. But these are great too. So again, it's kind of like a martingale, because when you pull, this tightens up, but then it releases. And what's nice about this is people don't see, because sometimes people are a little bit hesitant about putting a collar like this on a dog because it looks scary, right?
Yes.
Or somebody sees the dog on the street and they think that, you know, that the dog is being abused, or,
Exactly.
you know, so, but it's all education, and it's all understanding why we have these products and why we use these products and how effective they are. And again, not every product that I'm recommending is for every dog. You have to definitely talk to a trainer and have an assessment of your dog. And then another thing I love is leather leashes. These are my favorite because
Just
they're
a
nice
basic
and
leash.
soft. Yes, I'm old school when it
Yeah,
comes
yeah,
to
yeah.
some of my equipment. So I really like a basic leather leash. And you know, they will soften up with the oils on your hand over time. So this is a new one, so it's not real soft, but they do soften up over time. You can also take an oil, a leather oil, and you can also, if you want to soften it up sooner, you can use an oil on your leash and then hang it to dry. But I love 6-foot leashes for your healing, for your basic training and your basic obedience. And then a long lead, these are really great because you can use these for training your dog to come. So you hook this up and let your dog get a little bit of a distraction and the dog doesn't come, and you encourage it in with this leash. I'm positive reinforcement. I love to use food when I train my dogs because I think it helps get their focus, their attention on you. Some of the treats that I recommend are Stella and Chewy's. They have great little freeze-dried treats. Bill Jacks, they have the peanut butter ones. The dogs love those. So you can go and get any treats from the pet store. You can also use your own food at home. You can cut up a hot dog, or you can use a cheese stick. But you want to make sure that the treat that you're using when you train your boxer or your dog in general, that it's enough of a value, it's a high value treat, so that they are focused and they'll pay attention, and you can use it to redirect behavior and teach them to watch you. So I love using food for training the dogs. So, but anyways, yeah, so these are a couple things that I recommend.
That's awesome. So Amy, why do you love the boxer so much?
Well, I love my breed because they're very good family dogs. They're loyal, they're intelligent, they're athletic. You know, I love to exercise myself, so I love to take my dogs jogging, running. They're funny, they're silly, they're very entertaining. A boxer is such an entertaining breed, and yeah, I just love the breed.
Yeah, I have not been around a boxer very much. When I was a kid, a friend of mine had a boxer, and of course I didn't live with the boxer, you know,
Yes.
but that was the amount of exposure
Yeah.
I got, and he was always kind of wagging his tail,
Yes.
you know, and he was always a good dog.
But they are a guard breed too, so you have to realize that that's why they need to be socialized as puppies, because they can start resource guarding and being overprotective of their family.
Very good.
But I love that about them too, right? Because instinctually too, they are protective.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, they might not just let somebody walk into your house, but if they're well socialized, they should be able to instinctually know that it's okay for that person to come in, or obviously if someone comes in your house, like an intruder, they should know the difference between that person's body language, how you react and respond to them. So they are a guard breed too, but yeah, socialization is important.
I was reading the AKC manual on the boxer before this trying to get knowledgeable on it, and that's exactly what they were talking about, as far as the dog literally needs to know
Yes.
if the person coming in the house is family or foe.
Yes, exactly.
I'm like, how do they know that?
Yep,
But
instincts.
it's instincts. It's instincts. It's pretty, you, unless you experience it, like you being a breeder and advocate for the boxer, you just can't believe that a dog is that innate into its abilities.
Right, yeah.
And the needs of the family as well.
Yeah.
So Amy, can you tell us how you got started?
Of course. So I started out as a vet tech, and I ran a practice, and really just loved dogs so much that I wanted to make my career something where I could support myself, right? And being a vet tech, I really couldn't support myself financially. So I had to think about what direction I wanted to go. And I love dogs so much. I started out teaching puppy classes out of the animal hospital that I worked at. And then I started pet sitting dogs. So I wound up just working really hard and working several jobs along the way to establish my facility here now today. And as far as the boxer goes, my first dog was a rescue.
Okay.
And so he taught me a lot because he was an aggressive dog. He was aggressive towards people. And I worked with 3 different trainers, and 2 of the trainers told me to euthanize him. But I was committed and dedicated, and you know, I didn't have a family at the time, like kids or anything like that. So I was single, I was in my 20s, and so I could put the time and the effort and the resources into the dog. And that dog wound up living to be like 15, and you know, he was just this great dog. And I just fell so in love with the breed that I wanted to breed boxers. So I joined a club, then I joined, you know, some of the AKC clubs, such as like we have the Happy Tails Ranch Working Dog Club in Island Lake. So we started our own club. But you know, as you breed dogs, you start to learn a lot more about behaviors and behavior training. And I'm actually, I specialize in behavior modification, and we also specialize here in reactivity. Because we want to help people that have dogs or rescue dogs, and those dogs might have some behavioral problems or traits that they can't handle. So that's one thing that we do, is we like to step in, and we work with a lot of the rescue organizations too. And I'm a firm believer that if you're going to breed a specific breed, you also need to be a part of rescue. I think it's a super big deal that, you know, that you help your own breed with rescue. And I've rescued a lot of dogs and rehabilitated a lot of boxers over the years. That's one thing I didn't really share with you, but yeah.
That's awesome. The fact that, I mean, you're giving back, you know, all the time.
Yeah, I'm very passionate
and you're a
about
resource
rescue.
for the rescues and stuff like that.
And we foster for a couple of organizations locally, and we give discounts when people come to our facility and they rescue dogs, because you know, it's important those dogs get out and they get socialized and they get trained, especially like from a young age. When you have a puppy, a lot of people drop the ball on those puppies, and then those puppies grow up and now they're not cute and cuddly and little anymore, and now they have, you know, separation anxiety, or they weren't socialized, so they're afraid of things, or they become fear biters. So if they're not trained and socialized from a young age, then later on they can have serious behavioral problems, and then, you know, a lot of that could have been prevented. A lot of people don't realize a lot of issues with dogs when they're older could have been prevented when they were younger.
And what's the name of your facility here in McHenry, Illinois?
We're Happy Tails Ranch, and we're located off of Roberts Road. We're actually in Island Lake, Illinois. But we've been here, I established Happy Tails in 2000, so we've been here for quite a long time, and I've been breeding boxers since 1998.
Wow. And then we met you at a show.
At a dog show.
At a dog show. Mm-hmm. And you had
I think I had the Bieri-Shields on the table.
The Bieri-Shields on the table,
yes.
Which were fantastic.
Yeah, they're a cool breed.
Never seen one of those in my life.
Yeah, so.
Probably never will see one again in
Yes.
person, who knows.
Yes.
But tell us about how you ended up there.
Yeah, actually, so breeding boxers, I wanted to start putting titles on them, right? So, and I actually started in obedience before I actually started to breed and show dogs in AKC conformation. for their championship titles, for their conformation championship titles. I started in obedience. So I put a lot of like CDs and CDXs and rally titles and agility titles on a lot of my boxers over the years. So I enjoyed performance so much, and then I wanted to breed the dogs, and people were telling me that if you want to breed them, you should put these AKC championship titles on them. So I started showing my dogs in the AKC ring to get their championship titles. And since then, I've put about 150 championship titles on boxers.
Wow.
And I bred over 100 champions myself.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And I've had a lot of success. I'm very fortunate over the years. I've gone winner's bitch at the regional twice for our American Boxer Club. I have gone reserve winner's bitch at the national. I've had dogs from my lines win our futurity. So I'm very, very fortunate that I've had a lot of success within my own breed. I've even judged the top 20 at our American Boxer Club. That was super fun. I've judged sweepstakes, so I'm starting to dabble a little bit in that. I'm a professional handler right now, and I show all breeds. That's why when you came over, I had the Briards on the table. But
so
I would like to judge eventually.
Do they contact you, like the Briard, and if they need a professional handler?
Yes.
Are you available for those?
Yes.
For that?
So as far as the professional handling goes, I teach conformation classes here at Happy Tails. I teach 2 days a week, and so a lot of my professional handling business, I'm fortunate that people hire me because they know me from Happy Tails and they come here for my training classes. So, but I show all breeds. So I've shown everything from Rottweilers to Bieri-Shields to little dogs like Boston Terriers. Okay. And I actually bred Boston Terriers for a little while too.
Did you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So a true dog advocate.
I love dogs. Yes.
That's cool. That's cool. And that's it. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me today.
Very welcome. Thank you.